Today's lesson is going to cover tax basics. So the basics of tax graphing are taxes reduce the supply of products. And we're going to look later on at some of the effects of that. But here we have our tax graph, here's our market, and here's our consumer surplus area, here's our producer surplus area, and the market is operating efficiently, let's say, at this price and quantity. So the addition of a tax on this good is going to reduce the supply. I put supply plus tax. It's going to increase the price and reduce the quantity. So we're saying that before Q1 was efficient and now Q2 is not efficient. So that's going to create our deadweight loss as it has before between the quantity that is produced and what we're considering to be the efficient quantity. So here's my deadweight loss triangle in that regards. If you notice now, our consumer surplus triangle has shrunk because now they're paying a higher price and consuming less. Now the producer surplus is not this rest of this area because of what's being imposed is a tax. So the price 2 is what the consumers are paying. So we sometimes call that the price of the buyers. That's the price they notice, but that's not the price the sellers receive. The price the sellers receive comes from the supply curve and where that meets quantity 2. The difference between those two is the price of the tax vertically. When we take the price of the tax multiplied by the quantity of goods that it's applied on, this rectangle here represents our government revenue. So government benefits from taxation. Consumers lose out because you can see their triangle is much smaller than at equilibrium. And the producer surplus has shrunk as well as their triangle has shrunk from original location. Now again, this is assuming that the market was originally efficient at Q1, and so with the addition of the tax on, say, bread, it's not correcting an externality, it is simply just putting a tax for the sake of government revenue and therefore making the market less efficient. In the case of a negative externality, if we place a tax on, say, pollution, or we put a tax on cigarettes when society wants less, then it's going to remove the deadweight loss originally in the graph. Now, if we look at some numbers here and talk about, well, let's say this is the market for cigarettes, and the price that you have to pay when you go in is $10, and the government is going to place a $6 tax on cigarettes. So you paid 10, the government's going to receive 6, the difference between the price the buyers pay and the price the sellers receive, and of that $10, 6 went to the government, and the price the sellers receive is only 4. So you pay 10, the government receives 6, and the suppliers only get 4. So that's what goes to the firms. If we assume instead that we're correcting a negative externality, so now we know that in the market for cigarettes, that the market is not efficient and that society wants less consumption of cigarettes, then the tax is going to remove deadweight loss. So with the supply of the tax being lessened, price rises, the quantity consumed falls, and so we're correcting the externality so there is no deadweight loss, even though this triangle still exists to the right of Q2. We've removed deadweight loss because we're correcting a negative externality and therefore making the market more efficient through government. Then in that sense, here's my government revenue box, shaded in completely. Okay, we still have my consumer surplus shrinking, producer surplus shrinking to an extent, but there is no deadweight loss in this because we've corrected for a market failure.